Ava Raine continues to be at the forefront of some Roman Reigns theories, so we'll be diving into some of those ideas. Let's start things off looking at this very big popular fan theory that's going around right now, and that's the idea of Roman Reigns gaining control of Ava to use her as leverage against The Rock. The idea of Ava getting involved in the messy situation of the Bloodline and The Rock versus Roman Reigns was something we briefly discussed immediately after The Rock's return. But you can definitely take the conversation much deeper because all the seeds are pretty much in place. Ava's true identity is no secret at all. Everyone is aware that she is The Rock's daughter. There's no real hiding that. And it looks like towards the start of her NXT run, they were trying to let her have her own identity and distinguish herself from her family. That all changed with that backstage NXT segment between Ava and Paul Heyman in fall 2023. That was basically WWE truly acknowledging Ava's heritage and identity for the first time on WWE television, while also within character. So that was the exact moment they really solidified the fact of who she really is and who her family is. They're not hiding from it, and they're not trying to distance her from it anymore. They're incorporating it into the story and letting the audience know that yes, Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman are aware of Ava, another family member, and they are potentially maybe wanting to help her out and extend a Bloodline invite to her when the time is right. We very clearly saw Paul Heyman talking to Ava about the Bloodline, but we were unable to hear the actual context of the conversation, and the only thing revealed from that conversation was what we covered a few weeks back, where Ava said that Paul Heyman was the one who gave her advice to try and be there for Shawn Michaels to help out. And a very nice little detail about Ava's reveal of her conversation with Paul Heyman was that she didn't call him by his name. Ava referred to Paul Heyman as the Wise Man, which is of course the nickname given to Paul Heyman by Roman Reigns. So even the fact that Ava is referring to Heyman as the Wise Man may very well be a mini sign that she could be getting molded into the Bloodline's ways, with how she's now using their lingo and nicknames for each other. So how could things go further and take this big next step for Ava and the Bloodline's relationship? Well, like we said before, the seeds are definitely already in place, and it may be all part of Roman and Heyman's plan. Despite Ava looking a bit annoyed and zoned out during her first conversation with Paul Heyman, you could tell that the character of Ava Raine now has great respect for Paul Heyman because the advice he recently gave her did work and is now giving her arguably some of the biggest success in NXT. So with Paul Heyman's first piece of advice actually working out well for Ava, the fish is basically hooked, and Paul Heyman successfully has Ava's ear. If Paul Heyman comes over to tell Ava something else in the future, chances are that Ava will stop and listen to whatever Paul Heyman has to say, because he's been nothing but extremely helpful to her career so far. And Paul Heyman may genuinely care for her and truly be looking out for her best interests with his advice. But obviously we know that Paul Heyman isn't the main man in charge. The top man calling all the shots and making all the decision-making is obviously Roman Reigns. And Roman may have love for his cousins and relatives for sure, but if the last 4 years have taught us anything, it's the fact that he will not hesitate to use his family members, manipulate them, turn against them, and do whatever else needed in order for him to elevate his own status. So knowing how Roman is and how there's always a scheme and bigger plan behind every action, that's what has fans wondering what could be the real play here with Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and Ava Raine. Maybe everything starts off innocently, like the way it has, just Heyman going out giving useful advice. But before you know it, Ava is down a rabbit hole of Bloodline-related situations and concerns. So is Roman's plan to hook Ava in, have Heyman get a hold of her ear, and continue to slowly build her up and get prepared for the big move of joining the Bloodline? We definitely can't put it past Roman to be up to something like that. For years now, fans have discussed the idea of Roman Reigns potentially having interest in extending the Bloodline's dominance and reach into the WWE Women's Division. The Women's Division has been the one major part of WWE programming that hasn't featured any Bloodline-related influence. Some fans thought it would be Naomi, Nia Jax, or Tamina that would step into the women's division role for the Bloodline, but none of those names ever took the role. So now, fans are turning towards Ava Raine to turn out to be Roman Reigns' big plan to further the Bloodline's dominance in WWE. We see what the Bloodline has done for Solo Sikoa and his career. He's in NXT for some time doing his thing, trying to distance himself from the family as well. But the second that Roman got his hands on him and brought him into the Bloodline, Roman has now elevated Solo Sikoa to the point where he's picking up massive wins, such as the win over John Cena and just dominating WWE. So if Ava gets the Bloodline's invite, and she's a bit hesitant at first, all Roman has to do is show her Solo Sikoa's story. And that'll be convincing right there alone, because Solo and Ava's WWE careers started pretty similar. They both came from the historic wrestling family, but started off in NXT all alone with nothing, and had to scratch and claw for every single opportunity. Well, Roman can use Solo's story to show Ava that he truly is here to help the family, and since she's family, he wants to elevate her the same way he did with Solo and the Usos. And Roman Reigns may be manipulative, tyrant monster of a character, but when he talks about elevating his family members, you can't argue with him there. He may torture them and put them through insane circumstances, but he definitely has elevated Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and Solo Sikoa over the last few years. There hasn't been any Bloodline member that has flopped under Roman's guidance. So if you're Ava and Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman are presenting you with an offer like this, it literally seems impossible to turn it down. You'll have to be interested. And judging by everything Roman has done for the family over the last few years, you'll probably accept the Bloodline's offer in a heartbeat. And Ava will have a big spotlight on her and very high expectations, because she'll have something that a lot of superstars, male or female, don't have. And that's the direct guidance and advice from Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. And under their leadership, who knows? Maybe Ava would be able to bring the women's championship to the Bloodline and truly establish herself as another great success story from something that Roman Reigns placed his hands on. The other interesting part of this story that's even more intriguing to see is that a potential return run from The Rock is on the horizon. That's when all the pieces of the story could come together and create a pretty intense scenario. The Rock made it quite clear during his January 1st appearance that Roman Reigns is in his crosshairs, and he wants to knock him off that tribal chief position and free his family from his reign of terror from Roman. If that's already The Rock's goal for the future, having Roman Reigns brainwash his own daughter and have her be a part of the Bloodline would raise the stakes even more and make it potentially one of the most personal storylines of all time. Here's The Rock's oldest daughter, who he raised and who followed in his footsteps into WWE, now following Roman Reigns' way and getting manipulated and used by him, and she doesn't even know it. The Rock probably wanted to come after Roman for what he's done to the Usos and Solo Sikoa, but having his own daughter be one of Roman's victims would really leave The Rock no choice but to come after Roman as fast as possible. And this would leave Ava in a very difficult situation, either go with her father or stay with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, who are responsible for all of her great success. Maybe that's one of the ways Roman could manipulate Ava to stay on his side. He could remind Ava that her father did nothing to really help elevate her career, and how it was the Bloodline who was really there to lift her up. And maybe having Ava on his side is the leverage that Roman will use against The Rock to try and keep him in his place as much as possible. So The Rock versus Roman Reigns is very interesting on its own, but as you can see, throw someone like Ava into the mix, and things could potentially get even more intense. But what are your thoughts on this Ava Raine Bloodline theory? And would you like to see her get involved? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.